The coffee filter was a page from a school book. Melita Bentz was a housewife in Dresden, and she disliked the coffee. At the time, you made it by boiling the grounds, or by tying them in a cloth bag that had to be washed and never quite came clean, or by letting them settle and accepting that the last mouthful was silt. All three options produced something bitter, and the cloth in particular held the flavor of every pot before it. In 1908, she took a brass pot, knocked holes in the bottom of it with a nail, and looked for something to lay inside. What she used was a sheet of blotting paper torn out of her son Willie's school exercise book. She poured the water through. The paper held back the grounds and the oils that carry the bitterness, and what came out was clear. She registered a patent that summer and a business that December, with a starting capital of 73 pennigs and 2 employees, who were her sons. The company still exists and is still owned by the family. The cone shape and the ridges came later, in the 1930s, to slow the water down. If you use a paper filter or a machine that holds one, you are using a piece of a 1908 exercise book. Salt would not come out of the shaker. Salt takes water out of the air. That is what it is for in preserving food, and it is a nuisance everywhere else. In a damp kitchen, or in damp weather, salt in a shaker draws in moisture, dissolves very slightly at the surface, and then dries again into a solid mass. For most of history, this was simply how salt behaved. Households kept it in a dish and broke it up with a spoon, or dried it by the fire, or put a few grains of rice in the container to take up the moisture first. In 1911, an American salt company began adding a small amount of magnesium carbonate to its product. The additive coats the crystals and keeps them from taking on water and locking together. 3 years later, they advertised it, with a picture of a girl walking in the rain with an umbrella, spilling salt from a tilted package behind her, and a line saying that when it rains, it pours. The point of the slogan was literal. The salt poured in the rain, and other salt did not. The additive has changed since. Most table salt now uses a silicate rather than magnesium carbonate, and iodine was added on top of that in the 1920s for reasons of health rather than flow. The shaker on your table works because of a decision made about damp weather just over 100 years ago. The egg box settled an argument. In 1911, in the town of Smithers in British Columbia, a hotel owner and a local farmer were arguing. The farmer delivered eggs by cart over rough roads. A certain number arrived broken. The hotel owner did not want to pay for broken eggs. The farmer did not accept that the breakage was his fault. This had been going on for some time. A man named Joseph Coyle, who published the local newspaper, heard the argument and thought about it. He had paper and he had a press. What he made was a sheet of card, cut and folded so that it stood up into a grid of separate cells, each one shaped to hold a single egg and to keep it from touching its neighbors or the wall of the box. Then he built a machine to cut and fold the card in quantity. It worked because it does not try to be strong. The card gives way, absorbs the knock, and springs back. An egg is a very good structure under even pressure, and a very poor one under a point of impact, and the cells make sure the pressure stays even. The molded pulp version, the gray one, came in the 1930s, made from waste paper. The argument between the hotel and the farmer was solved. The design of the solution has barely moved in 114 years, and one is probably in your fridge.